Welcome to the Healers Café, the number one show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart to heart conversations about their day to day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. Welcome to the Healers Cafe. And today I have with me Karen Docherty. And basically, Karen has worked tirelessly to bring the word of spirit to those who need it most. From the UK to the US, from Asia to Australia, clients from all over the world meet with Karen to receive readings, enroll in mentorships, and share a space for discussions on the power of spirit. Let me see what else I want to share. There's so much to share here. I'm gonna, yeah, so mediumship is one of the ways that you help people and also to help them discover their own intuitive connection to spirit, if I have understood that properly.
hmm
But rather than second guess, I just want to welcome you and yeah, and ask you, well, first question, how did you get into this field and what what is this field exactly for those who may not know?
Yeah, so this field that I work in is, I mean, some people would call it like about energy, working with energy. Um, and it is an intuitive and a psychic and a medium. You're working with people's energy here on this world, on the earth, but you're also connecting with loved ones that have crossed over. And really, that's where it all started for me. When I was much younger, a small child, I used to see people from the other place, I would call it. And it was obviously people that had crossed over, but I didn't know that. So I used to see them as I was growing up, and I used to receive messages or feel the presence of them. And I was never frightened. It wasn't a frightening thing for me, but it became overwhelming as I got into my teens and later into my teens. It just felt like I was always busy speaking to other people, but not knowing who I was speaking to. So I would go to bed at night, and in the morning when I would wake up, I would say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I feel like I was talking to someone all night long," but I knew that I wasn't physically doing that. So as it became more and more overwhelming, I had already had a huge interest in mediumship. I read books, I watched mediums on TV, I followed certain mediums with their books and what they'd written. And I'd been doing that from a young age as well. So I started to kind of piece it together. And I used to go and watch mediums at our local spiritualist church.
Mhm.
And I'd go in there and watch them work and think, is this where I'm getting messages and from the spirit people? So I spoke to a medium and decided that I had to kind of harness what was happening and take a bit of control over it. And from then on, it just developed, really quickly into my mediumship. So it made me realize I was born with it. It was something that was always going to come, and it was always something I was supposed to do. And it's very vocational, and it's something that I'm very blessed to do.
Well, they're very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've heard from many people it's something that usually they notice in childhood, and if it doesn't get
Yeah.
suppressed out of you by, what people think or that it's strange or whatever, then it makes sense that you would explore it and, see what that is about. Yeah. Very.
Well, my grandmother was also quite mediumistic, and I didn't know that obviously when I was younger, but I do have memories of her sitting at her kitchen table and doing tea leaf readings for people. And I
Right.
remember maybe at the age of 3 or 4 watching her and hearing her telling the people, turn the cup 3 times, and then she would turn it up and she would read. And she was the one that always would say, "Oh, Karen brings spirit with her." And she would tell my dad, "Oh, don't worry about Karen, she's fine." So she knew and she could see what was happening, but she didn't kind of discuss it with me until I was older.
Mm.
And then, like I say, it just became to a point where I would be with friends and I would feel their loved ones coming around them, or I would be giving messages to people, or intuitively tune into people and get stuff for them. And it just became so overwhelming that it was too big for me not to look at it.
Yeah, no, no, it makes sense. Yeah. And it's interesting because I've come across more and more people that have like whether you call it a sixth sense, but a sense of something else. I don't mean necessarily being able to see or feel spirits around. I think that's a kind of another level of it. But I know in my own practice, I would call it downloads. It's like somebody would tell me their symptoms and I'd ask them since when. And then I would have this almost like flashback. I could see the entire scene of when it happened, what was around, what was the emotion. And it's like, whoa, and sometimes even names of people um,
Hmm.
that were then. And I've used that without realizing that it might be an unusual skill. So
Hmm.
I've just left it as, oh, that's how I practice. I've been comfortable to call it intuitive, because it
Yeah.
is a type of intuition,
It definitely is, and we are all psychic to different
Yes.
levels. We all come from the spirit world and we return home to the spirit world. But when we are here, we all have a sixth sense, which is your psychic intuition. Some people will say it's a hunch, some people will call it gut feelings. But
Mm.
whatever you call it, it's actually your psychic skill. And then some people will develop that to a higher level. Some people will naturally have it to a higher level, and some people will
Right.
go on and do work with it. But we all have it, even for our own lives, to kind of guide
Mhm.
us. I call it your inner sat nav. It's just to guide you through your life if you
Right.
know how to listen to it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I had I was in Mexico a few years ago, and I was talking to a psychic woman that happened to be part of this workshop, and I was getting a lot of messages, and I just want to share this because it's kind of funny. Um, I said, she goes, well, who's talking to you? And it's funny, it never occurred to me to ask. And she just said, why don't you ask their name? And when I did that, then it kind of was like, it's just so obvious, and you can do that, right? Like, we don't have to stay in the mystery of it, if they're willing to communicate who they are, if it's the right time, if all of those things, then you can find out who you're talking to, right? It just seems so funny to at that time it seemed like such an insight. Now it's like, okay,
Yeah, yeah, I think that
part of the
it's
journey.
good to build relationships with those that you communicate with. Like, for instance, if you're communicating with your own guides and helpers and your spirit team,
Yeah.
sometimes you're not going to get names. Mediumship isn't like a telephone where they can clearly tell you things, because if it was like that, then it would be so much easier, right? And it's never an easy
Yeah.
thing to do. But you will get names and you will get information like that. I think sometimes though, when you go looking for it, so a lot of my students will say, I want to know my guide, I want to know who that is. And I say to them, let it come, let it
Right.
unfold,
Right.
because if you go looking, your mind will tell you things. It's a
Yes.
natural thing for your mind to do. It's a strong tool for you to use. But your mind will also just tell you what it thinks you should know, because it's a
That's it.
logical thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you go looking for things, you don't get them. And other times, if you've got a communication happening at right at that time, absolutely, you can just
Yeah.
pick up the detail and go looking for that.
Right, right. Like sometimes it's a feeling or a physical, like a swoosh or something where it's like, oh, and yeah, so I totally agree. And that's in life in general. If you go action oriented, you're going to push it away. You have to wait. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
communication that knows when you're ready, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and just to
Yes.
allow that to be the case. So I'm thinking, where can I go asking you questions? There's so much. So what, like, can you give an example? No names, no people, no whatever of something that you've been able to really shift a person's life because of the knowledge that you have and the ability to connect, maybe to those who passed away or just in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, picking out one example, it's such a your mind has to go through everything. But what I will say is, in general, like 99% of the time, when people come for a reading, whether it's about their loved ones in the spirit world or about themselves in a psychic, intuitive way that they need help with their life or guidance and such like, it does shift them. It shifts their whole perspective of things. And that's what should happen. And you can't make that happen for someone. You can, like, when someone comes to see me, I just can share what I do. And it comes quite naturally, and it's always positive. Like, there's nobody that would come to see me that when they leave, they feel worse. They're always going to feel better. They're always going to have clarity on something, particularly if it is connecting with those that have crossed over, which is obviously a massive part of my work. Um, it is life changing in the sense that they realize that their loved one is still there, that they realize that they can still be in their presence, that they're still looking after them, looking into their lives, being part of their lives. And so, life changing in that sense, it heals and it's meant to heal. You know, this is what this work is, it's to heal both the people that I'm speaking with in this world and the spirit world as well. So in that sense, it's always life changing. It's always that someone's going to go away and feel like I didn't know that was the case, or maybe even if they're believers and they get a level of evidential mediumship, because it has to be evidential. And what I mean by that is there are many mediums that I've heard over time saying, I've got your mother here, and she's saying X, Y, and Z. She's saying you're going to get a new house. She's saying you're going to get a new car, or you're having a party at the weekend. Now, whilst that might be true, that information might be true, they haven't given any evidence of the mum. So evidential mediumship is, I have your mother here. She died when she was in her 60s. She passed with a brain tumor. She has 3 children. It's evidential about the woman, first of all, to verify that's the mum that we've got. Then we move on to what the mother is saying and what's coming in about the life now, which proves that she's still alive. So if a person can get that level of evidential mediumship and that connection to spirit, or a great psychic connection where it's about their life and giving guidance and it's very evidential in that aspect, it's very life changing.
I can imagine, yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, no, I didn't realize I've seen more the what you've just mentioned, where you don't know for sure and all could be true. And then, just like reading a horoscope, you might say, you know, this could apply, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that there's actually more. When my mom passed away, or passed over, I should say, uh, I uh, I thought I need some evidence, So I mean, it was obvious, like they took away her corpse, and like I saw it, so
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't in question, but that she was still around, and so I told her to give me a very clear sign, and it was so clear, like it was funny when I was sitting on the porch, and the we have this thing, that attracts like bees, or not bees, that wasps, basically. There's not one speck of wind, and suddenly there's like this localized turning of this thing, like enough that it's like it's almost annoying, and so I'm looking at it going, oh my goodness, thank you, it was
Mm-hmm.
so clear, I was just like, oh my gosh, but it's funny then. What's your understanding on the people who pass over? Because I'll give you, I mean, I can only talk from myself because it's not the work I do, but um, with my dad, I had a very close connection. But when he passed over, well, he always celebrated life. So when he died, he said, just celebrate what we've had. And but I've never, like, for at least 20 years or so, I've never had an after he passed connection.
Okay.
Sometimes I would ask for guidance, in my business and things like that. And like you say, you could make it up sometimes, right? Or it's just your inner voice listening to, because you're giving yourself the space and the time. Whereas when my mom passed, which we had a much harder relationship, except for the very last few years, um, oh, it's obvious. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
hear her, she's joking around, like she's liberated, whereas in life she was really, had a harder time. But I can feel her. It's like it's so obvious to me, right? And just recently, in the last year, I've been feeling like there's a connection, but also that they might be meeting, you know? So it's like it's probably a thought, maybe a
Mhm.
wishful thought. Because I don't feel it. Well, it's hard to know. Sometimes what you feel and what you think is complicated.
Yeah.
It's all within you, right?
Yeah, it can be. It can be. But I would say to anyone, yourself as well, if it's a strong feeling, then trust it. You know, these
Right.
feelings are not going to come out of nowhere. If it was that you're sitting thinking about things and then the thoughts are coming in, then maybe sometimes it can be your
Sure.
wishful thinking or your mind. But if they come from nowhere or you feel them, so not just think them, when thoughts come in and it's thinking, then it
Mhm.
can be your brain thinking. But if
Right.
it's a feeling deep within, then
Yeah.
usually it's true.
It's
So I would say trust it. But your mum maybe has more reason to make it notable that she's there and that
Mhm.
she's different because of how your relationship was when she was here. She's letting
Right.
you know that she's fine. She's letting you know that she's close to you and such like. And
Right.
your father, I'm quite sure, you know, in a private session, I'm quite sure your father would come through. I don't, when you're saying that to me, obviously it's natural for me to kind of listen and kind of tune into that.
Mhm.
And I don't feel that your dad has really been away anywhere else. I feel like your dad is around you. So it's maybe just that you're not feeling that communication or feeling his presence in that way. But I'm 100% sure he's there.
Mhm. So you feel that I mean, everyone, it's a generalization, so there might be exceptions, but you feel that everyone who passes over is there one way or another. It's a question of connecting to them. That's your
Yes.
experience.
Yeah, I do. And I know I've had questions in the past of people saying, you know, well, if someone crossed over 50 years ago,
Right.
will they still be there or have they reincarnated or will they be
Right.
connected or
Right.
have they moved on in some way? And, you know, that was a tough question when I first got asked that because I had to sit and think, well, what does happen? But
Yeah.
I know from the spirit world, you know, it just doesn't happen in that way. It's not like someone can just say over there, I'm going to go back as someone else now, and that means I've got no connection to my daughter. It doesn't work like that. When reincarnation is a huge subject, vast subject, but it's not actually the same person that reincarnates anyway. It's just part of the same spirit. So,
Right.
like Karen's journey is here and now. And
Mhm.
when I cross over, then that's my journey on the earth done. But part of my spirit could incarnate for another
Right.
part of the journey. So it's very complicated. But Karen, as me, I would stay in the spirit world, connected to my children, my family, my soul family that are already have been there before me. So yeah, I would say that they are around all the time. And particularly when I'm working as well, if that wasn't the case, there would be times I couldn't communicate with someone's loved one. And honestly, it's probably never happened that I couldn't communicate with a certain someone, albeit the levels of communication can be different. So it might be that I have a really strong connection with someone's mum and their dad is there, but it's a kind of weaker connection for me. But I would always be honest about that anyway, because there has to be honesty in mediumship.
What would your life be like if you were pain free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Um, and what do you think of like now there's, we say often we're in a spiritual war, where it's a war between evil and good. Now, there's lots of ways of looking at all this, but does that resonate with you on any level?
No, only from the perspective that I think there's always been, if you look back over history and over time, there's always been, bad things, good things. There's always been a battle. There's always been these things going on. So it's not, for me, I don't see it as a spiritual war. I see that humans are humans and they make decisions and they can go on the negative side of things if that's what they're choosing to do. So I feel like it's a human thing. It's where greed comes into it, money comes into it, corruption comes into it, all of the stuff that that we hear about and that we know about, that makes humans do what they do. And really, I feel sometimes that the spirit world kind of get a bit of a bad rap for it, because it's always like, well, this is, coming from somewhere else. It's meant to happen that way. From my perspective, spirit is good. Spirit is here to help and heal and move the world forward. Now, that might mean that some things happen in the world, like chaotic things happen in the world, in order for a newness to be born out of that. That definitely, I feel, is something that happens. It's kind of an evolution of things. But I don't think it's anything of control of spirit. I feel like humans are doing what they do, and hopefully in time the spirituality side of it will be stronger than that.
And you're making a distinction, I'm gathering, between spirit and religion, right?
Oh yeah, I don't even feel like it's like religion is religion, and religion is different for everyone. And I always would speak from a spiritual aspect rather than an organized or man-made religion. It's more of a universal spirituality I'm talking about.
Okay. So I have questions and they're disconnected, so I'll just go with them. They're coming to me. So there's a lot of pagan, rituals, right? Like the harvest, and there's spring, and there's all this. And then there's a lot of bad rap recently on paganism, as if, and it may be, I have no real historical knowledge on this, but that it's either demonic, or it's black magic, or it's bad witches, or all of that. Can you comment on that?
I don't have a great knowledge on, in like uniquely paganism, but from my perspective on how those things work energetically, I don't feel that that comes from spirit either. I feel that humans, again, I mean, it's hard to put into words, isn't it, sometimes? But so if we talk about magic and people talk about, dark magic and different things, magic is magic. Magic, you can call magic for anything. You can call mediumship magic. You can call intuition magic. You can do any of that. Now, people that have rituals to do things, certain religions, certain beliefs, there's lots of things all the world over, and people do certain rituals. But I don't feel that because somebody does a ritual, it's going to make that happen, or they're invoking bad spirits or anything like that. I don't see that. I see that, yes, are they dealing with energies? Yes. Are they maybe invoking powerful energies? Yes, that can happen. Of course it can. And you've got to know what you're doing with that. So I can see how people would look at that and say that's evil, or they're invoking certain things, or it's dark magic. I can understand that. But in my experience, and I can only speak from experience, whenever I connect with spirit, it's all good. There's not a fear. There's not, and we have to remember as well, there's a lot of things that are put out there to create fear. So
Correct.
when, it keeps people at a certain place, and, they don't have their own thoughts, then they're scared to go out with that. And that goes for anything that's organized. Even some areas of spiritualism do that. And spiritualism is a progressive religion. That's
Right.
the religion of being spiritual. But I don't really follow a set religion. I follow being spiritual. For
Yeah.
me, it's an openness.
Yeah, I would agree with what you're, I mean, that's represents how I feel about it too. What about the idea of entities? Do you I mean, I have the experience of really feeling that I can feel this, like an invasion of um, you know, a person with an entity that doesn't serve them. It could be old attachments, could be whatever. But I feel that they're better off removed. That's the feeling I have. And the guidance I get is to do that. Um, can you comment on that at all?
Again, I think it's a subject that some people experience it, and so if it's real for them, they feel that, and so it's not of their mind, it's not a projection of their mind, it's something that they're truly feeling. But again, from what I know about the spirit world and how the spirit world work, I don't feel that the spirit world attach themselves to humans. I think that they can be around humans, and I think that people can feel them and feel the presence. What I feel happens from that is the mind interjects, and the mind will tell you it's something to be frightened of. And before you know it, that is magnified. And because the mind magnifies things, it's like saying to someone who's frightened of spiders, you know, look, there's this tiny spider, and the person has a fear of them and it's out of control, and their mind is telling them it's something to be frightened of. So the mind can actually project a lot of the fear that's going on, whereas spirit will come around. And if the spirit know that you can feel them, they love that connection.
Right.
So, you know, I feel like it's most likely spirit just being around. I actually dealt with a case this week where a lady got in touch to say, I need your help. Please, can you call me? Which I did. And she said that for 2 years, every night she goes to bed and she feels this invasion of spirit. And it's really bad. And she's so frightened, and she pads herself with pillows and things like that. And she sleeps sitting up because she doesn't want to lie down, because she can really feel it a lot when she's lying down. And I talked to her for a good while, and I said to her, your spirit are not going to harm you. So whatever you're feeling, it's not something bad. And some other paranormal groups had told her, oh, it's the man that used to live in this house. He doesn't like women. He's against women. He's abusive and all of this. And I said to her, it's not true. And it's not the man that used to live there. And actually what's happening is you're very intuitive and you are feeling spirit around you, but they're not there to harm you. So I gave her a little way to set her intention. I said, set your intention at bedtime, have the knowledge and the trust that nothing's going to harm you. And within 3 days, she messaged me and said, I'm still feeling spirit, I'm still feeling the presence, but I'm sleeping and I'm not needing to sleep sitting up, and I'm not needing to put pillows. And I said, if we think about it logically, if spirit don't have a body and they can penetrate any solid object, what is a
Mhm.
pillow going to do? So you put the pillows there and it tells you you're safe. But
Yeah.
why would it be if spirit can? So think about things logically. So I think sometimes people can get in, you know, you can feel energy in someone or around them, but it doesn't mean they're attaching to them. It doesn't mean they're bad spirits trying to harm them. If you're talking about people that, like you'd said, that maybe there's energy there that doesn't serve them, I agree. There's sometimes where you'll pick an energy up around someone that's they're maybe not being served properly, but that can also come from their higher self. That doesn't mean it's an
Mhm.
external spirit doing that. It could be something within them that they need to work on, or they've had past trauma, or there's things that are still buried within their soul somewhere that they're needing to look at. It doesn't mean it's an external spirit doing that.
Mhm. No, that it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. I mean, you know, we create human stories, right?
Yeah.
To make sense of our reality, especially when there's not much knowledge about that reality, right? So, yeah, I think it's very interesting. Yeah, I've never felt personally scared of these energies. So uh, that's how I see it. You know, it's not like something, you know, I don't have the experience. It might be what I need to be doing in the future, though. I feel like
Hmm.
maybe it was the right timing to lose, you know, 30 years of experience as a doctor and do that part of the work now. That's it. I feel like there's something there calling me. It just seems possible. So anyway, it's very
Mhm.
inspiring. And nice to meet somebody who's doing it and helping people. So
Yeah, and it is really to help and serve, and that's what mediumship is. It's not, it's not about being a medium. It's not, I think there's a lot, especially now, social media and TV and mediumships out there, which is an amazing thing because then it really does get a platform and people do then start to listen and understand maybe what's going on, and that they can be empowered through their own higher self and all of that. So I love that. But also, the other side of that coin is that because of all that social media and everything out there, there's a lot of misinformation too.
yeah,
And there's a lot of people that I feel are looking for direction in their life, and they suddenly say, I think I want to be a medium, or I want to be a psychic, and how do I go about doing that? And I would say to anyone, if you're supposed to do this work, it's a calling. It's vocational. It's a calling. You will feel it, and it can happen at any point in your life. Just because you didn't do it when you were 25 doesn't mean you won't do it when you're 65. It can happen as a divine timing thing as well. But you really do feel like you want to serve. And I think now it's so easy to say, I'm a psychic and I've got a business. And, and for me,
right,
it
yeah,
takes the sacredness away from it and
yeah,
what the work actually is.
yeah. No. Everything can be corrupted that way. That's for sure.
Yeah.
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 Well, our time is up, but thank you so much for openly discussing all of this. I wish I had more questions, but we're out of time anyway. So, any last words I could leave with you?
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I always appreciate it because I feel like with these podcasts and things that are getting out there, it gets good information out there to people and helps people. So thank you for that. Any people who are interested in the work and who want to know more about the work can contact me, should they wish to, at karendocherty.com. But there's a lot of my podcasts on there. There's a lot of information on there. You don't have to sign up to anything. It doesn't cost anything. It's just to let people know that there is information out there if they want to know more about this type of work.
What I can add to that conversation after thinking about it a little bit is it comes back to, our own intuition of the role that our feelings play, our sense of knowing, as well as how thoughts work, right? Is to always be able to question your thoughts and acknowledge your feelings feelings can be a story of your emotions. So we have to be careful about that part. If it starts with an emotion, especially if it starts with an emotion of fear. But if you're feeling something, by all means, explore it. Like I was sharing myself, I get these ideas, these downloads, and they're very accurate. And as a practitioner, I had to choose: do I pay some attention to this, or do I just throw it out? And so what I did is I tested it. I if I felt strongly, then I would share it with my patient and say, does any of this make sense, or did this happen around that time, or what was happening around this time? More like an open-ended question. They would answer. Then I would have confirmation that I am picking something up. And that really helps, because there's so many aspects to healing, including allowing these downloads, this intuition, this connection to spirit to come through. Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on, as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.